So Ian Garry, Leon Edwards seems to be front and center. Social media, MMA outlets are covering the story, YouTube videos across the board. And it has grown into this big story leading into the Colby Covington, Leon Edwards, Ian Cochado Garry and Vicente Luque fight. And it seems to be dominating the headlines. For one reason and one reason only. People are interested to see how far down the rabbit hole Ian Garry is going to go in terms of his delusional state.
Are you delusional? Do you suffer from a mental illness?
And people are very interested to see him being exposed day after day. It's extremely interesting. That's why I'm doing this video again. So I've got a really interesting interview here from Dan Hardy's missus, Veronica Hardy. Very telling from someone who was on the ground in the gym at the same time as Ian Garry. And it doesn't paint a nice picture. And I also have a crazy, delusional, narcissistic, possibly mentally ill story from Ian Garry himself and his wife and what she was encouraging him to do. I don't know what to say about it. It's so crazy. So I'm going to jump into the Veronica Hardy thing, have a little look at that, and then I will get to the Kamzat story. Before I do, if you could like, subscribe and share. People have been very generous in doing it over the last couple of videos and I really appreciate it. Cheers. So all of a sudden my inbox on Twitter and on Instagram is filling up with people sending me these crazy stories of Ian Garry and his wife and all this type of stuff. And I'm like, should I keep on going with this story? Should I keep on doing it?
Hell yes.
I mean, they're doing a good job of it themselves. It's not just me who's talking about it. Every day, there's another fighter, there's another gym, there's another person coming out of the woodwork saying,
"This guy fucking sucks."
When you're walking around with 50 cameras with you and your voice is so screechy that people have to wear earmuffs in the gym, not really a good look. No one wants to train with him. And the latest to this is Veronica Hardy. So look, I'm just going to jump into it. I'm just going to jump in and we'll have a little look. Starting here, 15-minute mark.
Renegade. You're a person that goes to Renegade and trains, right?
Yeah.
Ian Garry, the whole situation. I've seen some of the posts that you've been putting up. I just wanted to get your thoughts on the whole situation.
Man, you know, it's like, it's not my drama to be like putting out there and sharing, but he's the only person to have ever been kicked out of Renegade. I go to Renegade and there's like people from all over the country that come to train, that drive for hours and stuff. And like, you know, and every gym, that's why in the UK, there's been so many that haven't allowed him to come, because there's just basic rules. Be respectful, show up on time. Don't be spreading gossip about other people, like basic.
So much subtext to that one statement from Veronica Hardy. You can keep plucking at it. There's so many layers to it. She says that people drive from all over the country to train at the gym. So they've got a good amalgamation of people in there training who don't get kicked out. She's a fighter herself. She trains there. She's been there for a long time. She's got nothing but good things to say about Leon Edwards and his team who help her out. She's never gotten kicked out. She actually says that she never got kicked out of any gym, which I would say is the norm for a lot of these UFC fighters and MMA fighters. I mean, who gets kicked out of gyms unless you're extremely annoying and screechy? Basic rules that need to be abided by if you want to train in an MMA gym or a jiu-jitsu gym. Don't spread gossip. Be respectful. Stop being loud and annoying. Ian Garry can't take off any of these boxes. He's walking around with 50 cameras with him thinking that he's Conor McGregor, and the majority of people in the gym don't even know who he is.
Nice.
I wouldn't have said anything had it not annoyed me so much with how incredible Leon Edwards is, because you can't have a whole story that suits your narrative. Like, oh, I came to Renegade and Leon Edwards head kicked me and sent me to a hospital, and then try and say that he's insecure. Okay.
There's a video of Ian Garry saying that he was at the gym training with Leon Edwards and he got head kicked so hard that he had to go and get a root canal. A couple of weeks later, Ian Garry comes out and says that he got kicked out of the gym because Leon Edwards was insecure about my skill set and my elite boxing and my elite skills. Again, we're talking about narcissism here. And remember, when you're talking about a narcissist, you're talking about a person who chooses to live in a fantasy world. And this is usually done to deal with the pain of the real world. And you can see that written all over Ian Garry. You know, you can tell that he was a spoiled, rotten brat. You can tell that he lacked something growing up. And that's how he's ended up being this guy. And listen, we've all been around these type of people. You can pinpoint it a mile away. It usually manifests itself in one or two different things. Either you're that extremely obnoxious guy that nobody wants to be with,
smash everybody.
Or you go the other route and you become the angry guy, the guy who's always starting fights, the guy who's just kind of out of his head the whole time. And at the end of the day, the two of them suffer from the same pain. It just manifests itself in different ways. But when you have the added element of an elderly, more senior person coming in, taking control of your life, you're looking for that father figure, that mother figure to hold your hand and tell you what to do. Now, everybody knows that with Ian Garry, especially with the relationship with his wife and her being older and she's in control of his assets. They have a business set up together where she's the leading shareholder, so she is in control of the money. But not only that, outside of the bubble, everybody can see that there's a puppet master. People can see the strings being pulled. And she calls him out for the hypocrisy in terms of, you can't get kicked in the face, have to go and get a root canal. And then when you get asked to leave the gym a few weeks later because of your obnoxiousness, turn around and say he was insecure.
See, now that's some bullshit.
But what's even worse than that is that Ian Garry has flipped it again. Now he's at the stage of saying and putting it out on social media, be careful who you listen to in terms of me getting knocked out, because Paddy Pimblett said it the other day and all of a sudden he takes offense to it. So now we're on a triple spiral here. How many times can you keep turning around on a dime here? This is crazy.
I mean, it's a bit sad because I don't think it's necessarily Ian himself. I think there's influences around him that you can see, and especially because, you know, I met him in Cage Warriors before the UFC, and I remember when he was fighting for the belt, and his original team said that he wasn't allowed to be in the team anymore. So it's like it's ongoing. And
referencing the Cage Warrior story that I covered a few weeks ago, all of a sudden this influence comes into his life and he can't train in the team anymore. He can't be part of the group. Now the group that welcomed him in and trained him have been replaced by the puppet master. Who is this puppet master? I suppose we can call her Layla Anna Lee. That's his wife, right? She wrote a great book called How to Be a Wag. What's a wag? Well, it's a wife or a girlfriend, and it's a term used for women who stalk professional sportsmen to become their wives or girlfriends in order to become famous and to be front and center on paparazzi lists and things like that. So Ian's current manager, coach, wife, puppet master, mother figure used to talk about how to grab a sports star, how to dig the claws into the back, not let go, and I guess control him. Interesting. Let's hear a little sample from her book.
Natural beauty isn't really necessary. Fake boobs, hair extensions, acrylic nails and dramatic false lashes envelop the look, and any girl can pull it off. Aspiring wags must invest around £50,000. That includes £5,750 on the stereotypical boob job, £7,050 on a designer wardrobe, and £9,360 on body conditioning. Be aware, you have competition. Don't bother being subtle. It's seriously competitive, so you have to show off what you've got.
So there you have it. Look, she's got a track record in being a wag, you know, someone that goes after sports stars, gets their claws into their back and doesn't let go, and it's all about control. So you put these two elements together, that's the origins of Ian Garry and his annoying screechy voice. Let's continue.
You know, like MMA media, like come on, man. I do better. Like I know it's hard because I know how much MMA media gets censored, and I know how much like you get seen depending on what you say and if you fit the narrative that they want to be pushing. But you know, integrity needs to be kept.
Very interesting point just in terms of the MMA media. Talking about censorship, of course that happens to everybody, but what you always want to see from MMA media is not for them to follow the line of the mainstream media, completely coerce and propagandize stories and try direct the narrative. What you want is the truth.
What the hell is that?
Unfortunately, you're going to get little snippets from the MMA media because they're not willing to upset a given fighter because of the fact that you mightn't get an interview in the future. But you have to be unbiased and you have to dig a little bit deeper in terms of scratching the surface of a story. And with Ian Garry and Leon Edwards, of course, we're going to have two sides to the story. You can't put out a tidbit about Ian Garry and a little bit about Leon and leave it there, because people are going to take up that vacuum and do the research themselves. And that's where we are with the Ian Garry stuff. People like myself and other content creators are just looking at this stuff and it's very easy to find. And this is what's infuriating, because I've said it a million times on this channel. When you can see it in plain sight that there's a narrative being spun where we're being told that Ian Garry is this future. He's so good on the mic. This guy oozes charisma.
Stop it. Get some help.
No, the majority of people are saying the opposite of that. And because we call it out in that manner, all of a sudden you're a hater.
That's gross.
Real quick, I want to jump over here to this Kamzat story. Again, an exemplification of narcissism, delusional, just like an alternate reality where this guy is living. But it does give you an insight into where he is in his position with his wife. Almost being more than coerced to do certain things. Let's have a listen to this.
I'll tell you a funny story about Kamzat. We got in the elevator and me and my wife were standing there, pressed the button, doors open, Kamzat and his missus. I'd love to have a fight here. I'd love to just swing hands with Kamzat in the middle of an elevator. I'd love...
Sorry, what? Kamzat gets into the elevator with his wife, you're there with your wife, and in your pea brain, you're thinking, I'd love to swing hands at this man. I don't even understand what sort of mental state you would need to be in to be thinking like this. But I do understand the state that you need to be in to bring it up on an interview in front of the world. You need to be so depraved of attention that you're going to say these outlandish things to get eyes on you. So sad.
The stories are doing fucking cool. And my missus like that, looking at me like her eyes popped out of her fucking skull. And she's like, do it, like have a fight with him. And I'm like, my fucking like in my head, I'm like, my teammate's about to fucking fight him tomorrow.
The stories would have been so cool, and my wife is staring at me saying, do it. And I'm there in my head going, I'm not going to swing hands at some guy because my teammate is fighting him. The rationale here is literally all over the map. It's so disturbing to hear it. This is not a funny story. This is not like, oh yeah, look, we're having a laugh and he's telling this cool old story here about Kamzat. This is a delusional person here who's creating narratives and talking insanity.
I'm not fucking ruining that. Also, there's two fucking women in here. Me and him are gonna go to the death if we fight in an elevator. We step out with the lift and my wife just looks at me and goes, you're a pussy.
One more time for the people down the back.
My wife just looks at me and goes, you're a pussy.
And that is where we will end this video. You're a pussy. Not my words, they're your wife's words. Let me know your thoughts down below. Cheers.